Okay, hello everyone. Uh, I'm gonna do a quick deck tech on Tinfins, and I kind of wanted to talk through this list I have here and some of my thoughts on the deck after playing a couple of leagues, and kind of seeing what the 2021 meta is in quarter 3 here. So right now it's August. For those of you watching in the future, so it's August 2021 that I'm recording this. And so with Tinfins, I feel like there's like a core of the deck that almost always stays the same, and then we adjust our flex slots depending on where the meta is and what we want to do with the deck. And then, same with our sideboard slots. There's, a couple cards that are always going to be the same, and then a few that, dip in and out, as the meta progresses, right? Um, so this is going to just be a quick video, hopefully, probably 10 minutes would be my guess, while I discuss some of the card choices. And hopefully this will be a good primer for those of you who are new to the classic Tin Fins lists, and maybe a good a reminder, a good rehash for people who are players who are coming back into the deck after walking away for a bit and wanting to get at least a good starting point for the deck, right? So the way that I have my deck out right now is, so I feel like these cards right here are kind of like the core of the deck. And so so right now I have about 8 cards is like my sort of like flex slots right here, that we can change up as personal taste. So my personal tastes are these 8 right here. So I feel like 14 lands is a really good default starting point for the deck, and I feel like your makeup is always going to be, you're always going to run 4 Polluted Delta. You're always going to run at least 2 Underground Seas and 1 Swamp. And then from there, depending on what your splash color is going to be. So right now I'm splashing white, since that's what I have in paper. So I like to try to do most of my testing within this framework, so I don't have to worry about borrowing tropical islands and stuff, right? But in general, I feel like white is actually pretty decently positioned. Um, but I really for your splash color, you're typically gonna run uh you know the blue, and then whatever your color is land, and then your black, whatever other color it is. So if you're running Grixis, you're going to be running Badlands and Volcanic Island. If you're running, uh, you know, Bug, Bayou Tropical Island, right? Um, so that's typically to run that, and then your other fetches are going to be, uh, tip. I feel like the agreement is usually Swamp is our most important basic, since, well, I mean, our entire combo needs black mana, right? So you generally want to err towards at least 2 of your off fetch being one that can fetch a swamp. I know some people will do a mix of, like Misty Rainforest and Verdant Catacombs, or Scalding Tarn and Bloodstained Mire. Uh, depending on how hard you're splashing in the deck. Um, so that that's all going to be really your personal preference there. Um, and then for 14 lands, I like running 3 Underground Seas. You're almost always going to be fetching an Underground Sea first anyway, just because you always want blue mana, you always want black mana. Game 1 especially, I mean, outside of those random times where you're actually casting Children of Corliss, uh, Underground Sea fixes your colors immediately. And so yeah, so I like 3. You can always do swap your if you only have 2 Cs, swap 1 C for a basic island, if you want to stick on the 14. Right now I actually have 15 lands in the deck. uh Main reason, I like having both swamp and island as my basics for the deck. That way, if I'm playing against like a Blood Moon deck, or Back to Basics, or Price of Progress, or any of those non-basic land hate cards that pop up a lot, I can at least cast my cantrips, cast all of our combo pieces. So I like having both. And generally, if I'm playing 15 lands, it's mostly because in the sideboard, I'm playing. I have like a 3 mana spell that I want to regularly cast on turn 3 or even turn 2 with some help from mana accelerants. Um, so I personally like having 15 lands right now with 2 basics, 3 undergrounds, one of each splash, dual, and then 8 fetches. Um, I think you can make the argument that maybe these should be like snow covered lands. There's some games where maybe you can like lead off on like a marsh flats fetch, snow covered island, or if you're running like flooded strand, snow covered island, or misty rainforest, snow covered island, and make your opponent think that you're like a 4 color deck or something like that. And maybe they'll adjust their gameplay. I don't know. I when you get into like those levels of trying to outgame your opponent, like does it really, are you really fooling anyone, right? So I have just regular swamp, regular island. I really like these time spiral basics. Like this is like probably one of my favorite island arts, right? So that's why I'm choosing to run these. If you want to play for maximum gain, snow covered is potentially is probably going to be your best bet there. Um, and then another thing to note, I know a lot of this is a frequent question that comes up in the Tinfins Discord. Hey, I don't have underground seas, or I don't have tundra, I don't have scrub, I don't have tropical island, whatever. What do I do if I don't want to drop, uh, $2 grand on real estate here? And honestly, I believe that you can a replace these with like the equivalent shock land. Yes, we do want the life payment. That is a factor with this deck. Is you really want to be able to draw 14 on when you activate Grizzlebrand in your pre-combat main phase. And so, we already have Thoughtseize, fetches take one off you. Um, there's enough, blue-red Delver is really popular, so you're probably going to get hit by like small creatures and burn spells. So like those shocks do add up, but yeah, I feel generally it's not the end of the world to play 1 or 2 shocks. I've actually taken lists that were I literally just played only swamps, islands, and fetch lands, and it was fine. Like as long you really just need your at least your 1 black mana so you can like cast Dark Ritual and all your stuff. You want to have at least your island so you can cast your cantrips. So like if you're coming here hoping for like budget options, get what duels you can, pick up, fill in with shocks as needed, and then don't be afraid to just run extra basics. I mean, Wasteland's a popular card. Price of Progress pops up a lot in Burn, and if you're looking for budget options, especially if you're playing in paper, odds are you're going to run into a Burn deck at your local game store. It's everyone's favorite $100 deck, right? So don't be afraid to just fill in the blank with basics to be able to play these. And if you have like prismatic vistas, run those instead of these fetches. Like this is maybe what you'd call like the optimal mana base, but don't lose too much sleep if you can't get 3 underground seas or that splash colors. Like you can't play shocklands. It will probably lose you, 1 out of every 20 games or so. I mean, it sucks, but it is what it is, right? So don't go taking out a second mortgage. Don't go, you know, unnecessarily putting yourself in the debt for these if you can't afford to like play shocklands, play like 8 basic lands, skew more towards swamps because obviously this is a very black heavy deck. And I mean, you don't even need to like splash for a third color. Like you could just play straight up blue black. Your blue, you have enough blue and black answers to the hate cards that people are going to bring in that you'll do fine. So there's my note about just kind of trying to budget up the mana base. But yeah. So anyway, rant aside, 15 lands. I like 2 basics. I like this makeup. I feel like this is just a solid mana base. Going over to our fast mana. Um, so 4 Dark Ritual, 4 Lotus Petal. You have to have them. Um, otherwise, like why are you playing this deck if you don't have your petals and rituals? Right now, I'm running 1 Chromox. I like it. I like Chromox. I always want to have at least one in this style of deck because you know when you're frequently trying to go off on like turn 1 or turn 2, what are you generally looking for? Lotus Petal or Chromox so you can cast your stuff. Um, you can make the argument that for a 14, like you can do like 14 lands and 2 Chromox. Um, and for those of you who are familiar with MTG the Source, like we've done like a lot of math on this over the years, and like the increase in like turn 1 combo turns or decrease in like fizzle rates wasn't as significant, whereas having like just the 15th land seemed a lot more stable. And I think we even did like 13 lands and like 2 Chromox with this. And like you might be maybe marginally a bit faster or have a lower fizzle rate during your combo turns, but being able to just have land drops and make your land drops is gonna be a lot better over the course of like a long event or over a long horizon than loading up on mana disadvantage spells, right? Um, so I like 1 Chromox for now. I you could play 2 and cut a land, um, and do just fine, and you might have more explosive. You'll have more explosive turns, but in our testing, it didn't really make much of a difference, other than you had way more keepable hands when you had more land. When you had 14 to 15 lands. Um, Going over to our cantrips, our cantrip pile here. I mean, for Brainstorm, for Ponder, I feel like these are these are the blue cantrip cartel, right? Like this is why people get upset at like Legacy, right? Because Brainstorm is just it's Brainstorm. Like, why would you not want to play Brainstorm? Similarly, Ponder is fantastic. Why would you not want to play Ponder? Um, Limduel's Vault is a card that we get a lot of questions about it on the Discord, and overall, I think a lot of newer players see this, and you look at the top 5 cards and be like, okay, cool, put them back, and then that's it. You're not drawing these cards, but it's just such a powerful card, and there's games where it's like, okay, turn 2 EOT, cast Limduel's Vault, find your missing combo piece, win the game on turn 3, or it's a sideboard game and you're playing against like a Chalice deck and they have, Chalice the Void on one, maybe like a Trinisphere or something like that. And it's like, okay, Limduel's, it's like, cool, Limduel's Vault, find Serenity, find, the combo piece that we need to keep things going. So it's very much a card that, as a one of, it's great because it's very high impact when you draw it and cast it, because it's find your missing combo piece or find multiple missing combo pieces, find a combo piece plus an extra protection spell, find extra fast mana. Like, it's incredibly powerful. I mean, this is a deck that says, hey, or this is a card that's you're uh, uh, if there's a card that's 2 mana, uh you know pay 3 life, look at the top 15 cards of your library, choose the best 5, put them on top in any order, and or shuffle your library and put your favorite 5 on top in any order. I mean, that's great. Like, people, very efficient card for trying to find the things that you do. And yeah, so I think it's I think it's a staple. It's a staple in this deck. Really an unsung hero. You'll go events where you never cast the card, you never even see the card. There's a lot of games where it gets imprinted on Chromox and it's just an artifact underground sea. But like this is a card where, as a one of, incredibly strong. I wouldn't run as a 2 of, because like It's not good every game, um, but it's one where as a one of it's just incredibly powerful. Um, in my flex slots at the moment, I'm actually running two preordain. Um, I feel I feel like since probe got banned back in the days of like Gitaxian probe, we were running the 8 cantrips plus 4 probes, so we had like 12 cantrips in the deck, and that got banned, and we kind of like started like shifting things around a bit, and I feel like just running 8 cantrips, I feel like that like really cut down on the consistency a bit. um, so I've added two preordained for now. I'll frequently cut one or both of these depending on the matchup, since it is a flex slot card. But I think 10 cantrips feels really good. Um, a lot of times you'll have a lot of keepable hands that are like one or two lands, one of these halves of your combo, maybe something else, and then like a couple cantrips. And so those are great hands. We want to have as many cantrips as possible to find our missing combo pieces, or find the missing protection spell to safely go off, or find our land drops. Like especially preordained to try to like find land drops. Absolutely fantastic. So I like it. Other people disagree with me. So that's why I consider it a flex slot. But I'm currently liking the 10 cantrip setup plus one of the duel's fault. As far as like the core, I mean, 4 Entomb, 4 Shallow Grave, 3 Goryo's Vengeance. Like this, you're never gonna change this. Like these 11 cards are always gonna stay the same. Um, Kind of on that similar note, 2 Grizzlebrand, 1 Emrakul, 1 Children of Corliss. Like this is like a complete package right here. Like these 15 cards are uh this is your combo core of the deck. And I very rarely are you going to board any of this out. The exceptions to this are, the great thing is, okay, this is 15 cards right here, and your sideboard's 15 cards. And if you're doing the old swap plan, whether it's for like the Doomsday sideboard, maybe you're running the creature plan, or maybe you're just, I don't know, running like a storm plan. I don't know, but if you're doing like the 15 card swap, I mean, these are the cards you're taking out. You're taking out all the graveyard stuff, and adding non-graveyard things to swap that. So you're almost never going to change. I am running in these flex slots one Grizzlebrand and one Reanimate, so 3 total Grizzlebrands and then one extra Reanimate. I feel like the one Reanimate is just a really good spell. I mean, there's a lot of games where you could just, turn one, land, Entomb, Lotus Petal, Reanimate Grizzlebrand, and that just like that's game winning on the spot. You're playing against like an opposing Reanimator deck, and you Thoughtseize them, and you have Reanimate in hand. You can steal their creature. You can steal an opponent's creature for their graveyard. If you're comboing off, Reanimate gets Children of Corliss. It's extra life loss, so it synergizes with the life gain ability on Children. So I like Reanimate quite a bit for 1 mana as a as a flex slot card. I think it's great. It brings us up to 8 total reanimation cards. Um, so I like having the Reanimate. Of course, I just got rid of it from there, but I like it. I like it, and I recommend it. The third Grizzlebrand, we've gone through a lot of different builds throughout the years. I feel like 2 is your default. Like you always want 2 Grizzlebrand. I mean, that's the main point of the deck is get this into the graveyard, do the thing. Sometimes you're going to fizzle and you're going to lose your Grizzlebrand to, Shallow Grave or Goryo's Exile Clause, or maybe it gets hit by Swords to Plowshares. And so having the second one is kind of a necessary thing. The third Grizzlebrand, it ups your consistency quite a bit. Because if you can't entomb it, one of the big things, of course, is self discard. So you point one of your discard spells at yourself, and then you reanimate it, right? So having the third one kind of helps in that consistency of just being able to do self discard. The nice thing is once again, I like to flex slot board um, the third Grizzle brand out a lot, especially in matchups where I know that like I'm not going to be able to like outspeed my opponent, and if it's going to be like a longer game, drawing a Grizzle brand is such a dead draw. Drawing Emrakul is such a dead draw. So I'll cut one of these to bring in one of these more important sideboard cards that help me get my combo through. So Reanimate Grizzlebrand, both easy cuts if you're looking for sideboard things to slot to cut out. So I just like having these two things as my flex slots right here. So of course, if you are doing like the sideboard 15 cards out and sideboard 15 in, if your plan doesn't utilize the graveyard, it gets a little bit harder with this exact setup. Since it's exactly 17 cards. But there's like a lot of times where I'll, keeping like a reanimate plus a Grizzlebrand with a creature plan isn't actually the worst thing in the world because you can, escalate collective brutality to reanimate it. Or if game goes on really long, you can, hard cast that thing out there and randomly win that way. Um, so that's just something to know as you're building like your sideboard. Going over to like our protection spells, I feel like uh, at minimum, at the very, very minimum, this is where your starting point. 4 Thoughtseize, 1 Cabal Therapy. Thoughtseize is just it's the premier discard spell, right? You play against a black deck, you're probably getting Thoughtseize. So like this, I almost never. The only time I actually cut Thoughtseize if I'm sideboarding is if I'm playing against Burn and I know that I don't want to lose this extra 2 life. It's like, okay, I lose 2 life and take a card that's doing 3 damage to me. Cool. I guess I save 3 damage, but that still isn't a great trade off. But generally, Thoughtseize, run all 4, almost never cut it. Cabal Therapy. So this is a card where back in the day, once again, back in the Gitaxian Probe era, we would run 3 Cabal Therapies because you could just probe, look at what they got, and then Cabal Therapy. Life is good. But now that we don't have that extra peak effect, Cabal Therapy is just much harder to land. I love this card. Cabal Therapy is great. A lot of times you point it at your opponent and name the card that you're most afraid of. So Surgical Extraction, Force of Will, Fairy Macabre. So like there's really like the mind games that you need to play with this are just am I trying to combo off? Okay, name the card that's going to stop me. And if they don't have that, then great. That being said, it gets harder because there's Force of Will, there's Force of Negation. So that's like that, and a lot of those decks are playing 6 free counter spells. More if they're playing the full set of days, and it it gets a lot harder to hit. And so since there's like a lot of varied threats, especially in the counter magic front, it's harder to suggest more than one. I feel like you always want one, just because the main draw here is so the flashback sacrifice a creature. So for those of you who don't know, if you have a Grizzlebrand on the field with Shallow Grave, has exile at the beginning of the next end step. Goryo's Vengeance, same thing, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. And so if you flashback Cabal Therapy, sacrificing your Grizzlebrand Emrakul to its effect, this exile clause won't matter because when it's on the battlefield, it doesn't exist anymore, so you won't exile it. It'll be safe in your graveyard or shuffle it into your library. So the flashback is very good because there's a lot of times where you'll draw 14 cards, can't make an Emrakul, so you go through combat, maybe draw another 7, realize, oh shoot, can't get there, so you just Lotus Petal, Therapy, sacrifice your Grizzlebrand, and just get them next turn. So Cabal Therapy helps you reload and reuse your Grizzlebrands. As far as protection spells go, I really suggest having at least 7 total protection spells. Generally, discard is the way to go because, as mentioned before, our main game plan is to just, if we get a Grizzlebrand into the yard, and we only have 4 Entombs, but so self discard is a frequent way there, and we want to utilize discard that can hit creatures as well as other things. So, Cabal Therapy, non-land, Thoughtseize, non-land. You play Duress, you can't target yourself. Um, Unmask is a very popular card that gets played a lot, and I like Unmask quite a bit. I was playing Unmask for like a year or so, just because it's a free discard spell. We definitely have the black count to utilize it. Um, it gets around Chalice, which is cool. Uh, you can point it at yourself. You can exile excess Grizzlebrands, excess combo pieces, whatever extra stuff you have for it. But then they printed Veil of Summer, and trying to use Unmask and then your opponent Veils of Summer feels super bad. Like, they draw a card and now you're down 2 cards. Like, I feel like Veil of Summer made Unmask a little bit obsolete at the moment. Now, last summer, Veil of Summer was like everywhere. And now it's kind of scaled back a bit where people aren't playing like 3 or 4 of those main deck anymore. So I think you can run Unmask again, but I'm currently staying away from it. I decided to go with a second Cabal Therapy copy, uh, just because I want that discard, and I think it's just good. And then in the last slot, I have Flusterstorm at the moment. Um, this list I built it around like a creature plan first, and the creatures I really like are Sedgemoor Witch, and Monastery Mentor. So Sedgemoor Witch has the Magecraft, where you create a pest token whenever you cast or copy a spell, and so Flusterstorm is a great card to supplement that. They go to bolt your witch, you Flusterstorm it, and then you get like three tokens off it for 1 mana. Like, that's fantastic. And I didn't do that for this list, but I left it in there because I want to see how good Flusterstorm is. And it has a lot. There's a lot of combo decks. It's great there. You're playing against the Force of Will decks. This can save your skin, right? So I think as a one of, I like it. Once again, it's a very easy cut against like a Chalice deck, so that's great. I don't like that it can't stop Endurance though. Endurance uh, is a problem for us, and we're getting a lot of splash damage in the meta for that. So I'm reconsidering this, but for now I'm leaving it in. I'm testing it, and I think it's fine. Once again, maybe this just needs to be the third Cabal Therapy or a first Duress copy. So I'm not really too sure about it. I don't want to go lower than 7 protection spells because I feel like you want to at least see one. This meta, especially with all of the endurances, the Force of Will, Force of Negation, Dazes, being able to kind of protect your combo turn goes a long way. And so Flusterstorm is a fun reactive way to do that, and then it has synergies with other plans that we may do. Lastly, last slot here. So I'm running Collective Brutality. The big thing that people that we like to have is, so there's a lot of games where you draw 14 in your main phase, can't get them, so you go to combat, swing, and then okay, what's next? Well, we can loop our deck by frequently getting children out, sacrificing it, discarding Emrakul to shuffle our library, and just making like infinite life, and then casting over mana spells and casting Emrakul. And I think that's generally, one of the best ways to win. Traditionally, Tendrils of Agony is used in this slot because you go to your post combat main phase, draw an extra 7. You'll probably hit a Lotus Petal and or some number of Dark Rituals after drawing 21 cards. And if you hit them with Grizzlebrand, if they're at 20, they're now at 13. And you probably cast Entomb plus Shallow Grave, and maybe even a Dark Ritual. And so, like, Dark Ritual, Lotus Petal, Tendrils of Agony can seal the deal on them. But Tendrils of Agony is just an awful card to draw on its own. Like, you draw Tendrils of Agony and you're like, wow, I drew literal nothing. Yeah, there's like odd cases where you're playing against Burn and you just kind of burn some petals and rituals to do like a mini Tendrils to give yourself like a life buffer. But it's such a rare occurrence that like I don't recommend playing Tendrils of Agony in paper. And so Collective Brutality is a great card because um, in that second main phase, you can Collective Brutality, drain your opponent, gain 2 life, loop your deck, cast Collective Brutality again, and you can just infinitely drain them out from whatever life total. Because there's times maybe your opponent is, I don't know, at 50 life somehow. I don't know how, but it happens where you're hardcasting Emrakul, and maybe even a Grizzlebrand for 22 isn't actually going to win you the game next year when you take that extra turn. So Collective Brutality can just drain them from an infinite amount of life. And paper, once you establish this loop, you can just be like, yeah, I'm going to do this instance over and over and over again until you're dead. And people will be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, and scoop it up. On MTG Online, that's a lot of clicks. You have to sit there, click everything through, click, 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 click. And I know personally, I'm pretty slow on Magic Online, so you know, timing out is a frequent concern for me, and this just kind of can exacerbate the timeout problem. So I don't, if you're looking for like just a straight up post combat main phase way to quickly close out a game, Magic Online, play Tendrils of Agony. And in paper, you can play Tendrils of Agony and do just fine. Once again, as a one of, how often are you going to draw it? You can frequently put it back with Brainstorm, shuffle with Ponder, bottom it, whatever. And it's not the end of the world. But it's one of those things that comes up often enough where it feels really bad. Collective Brutality, I mean, outside of the drain mode and being able to infinitely get them, I mean, part one, target opponent reveals their hand and you take an instant sorcery card. Odds are, what are we wanting to take most of the time? Force of Will, Surgical Extraction, something of that nature. So that first mode's really good. Second mode, target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. I mean, that's fantastic. Kills Thalia, kills Eidolon, kills Delvers, most hate bears. Like the only thing what doesn't it kill? Uh, like the random 3 power creatures that show up, True Name Nemesis, things of that nature, right? So, uh, that mode gets a lot of creatures, and that's really good. And then, of course, the escalate, you can get all those effects if you discard 1 or 2 cards. Well, frequently you can Collective Brutality, discard Grizzlebrand, strip their hand, kill a hate bear, drain them a little bit to give a life buffer, and then turn around and reanimate it. So like it's a card that just it does a lot at 2 mana. So I really like Collective Brutality because it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife card. It's a win condition, it's a protection spell, it's a creature kill spell. It does a lot. So like I feel like, so I'm running it right now on MTG Online because I don't want to get hit with the Ragavans. That sounds like an awful time. Being able to snipe a creature, snipe an instant, be a discard outlet, like that's a lot of utility for 2 mana. And as a one of, I huge fan, absolutely love it. Once again, same as Limduel's Fault. Great as a one of. For a while, we were running 2. In the days of Deathrite Shaman, having 2 of these was really great because then you could answer Deathrite Shaman main deck. That's awesome. So yeah, so I like Collector Brutality. On Magic Online, maybe play Tendrils instead. I might actually swap this out for a Tendrils next time I play. Because this is a lot of clicks to actually kill someone on Magic Online. But in paper, I would say you almost always want to run Collective Brutality in that slot. Yeah. So that's the main deck. Already we're at 33, 34 minutes. So let's talk over our sideboard options real quick. So your sideboard is almost always where your splash colors are going to be coming into play here. So I'm running white, and to me, the 2 biggest reasons why you'd run white are, one, this card right here, Serenity. So for those of you who don't recognize this card, don't recognize Zordon here, right? At the beginning of your upkeep, destroy all artifacts and enchantments that can't be regenerated. And so at 2 mana, this gets around Chalice unless they cast it on 2. But if they cast it on 2, they've also already cast it on 1 and on 0. So at that point, if you ran into 3 Chalices, you weren't winning that game anyway. But this hits everything. Wraths the entire board of all artifacts and enchantments. And that's huge. If you can get this to resolve against a Chalice deck, that's big. It's great against Death and Taxes because sometimes some of their hate bears are like enchantment creatures or artifact creatures. It'll hit their Aether Files. So this is, I think, one of the big draws to playing white is that you have a 2 mana answer to all artifacts and enchantments on the board. This also wipes out your own Lotus Petals and Chrome Moxes, so be careful when you use it. Uh, but yeah, I like it quite a bit. The big thing though is it is slow because I mean you play it and then you pass the turn, and then on your next upkeep, on your upkeep is when it goes off. Um, so there's like a lot of times where if the game's going slow, maybe you're playing against like Eldrazi Tron, uh, they you cast Serenity and then they just like double Reality Smasher and kill you on the next turn, and you know that that's sad times. But I mean, for 2 mana, it's such an efficient answer, and Legacy is all about efficient answers. So really love it. And then of course the mainstay of, or actually no, we'll stay on white for now. The other big reason why you want to play white is silence effects. Um, I really like silence quite a bit, just because I mean your opponents can't cast spells this turn. There's a lot of cards, there's a lot of free counter spells running on right now. Force of Will, Force of Negation are like main deck of 4 and 2 right now, plus 4 dazes. And so this is like a card where you can cast it, and either A, it's gonna catch a counter spell. In that case, that's efficient. You if they force this, well, you strip 2 cards out of their hand. That's cool. Or B, they don't counter it, and now you have free reign to, do your thing. And then of course it also does. You can also cast this, against like your storm opponent, right? You can watch them spend a bunch of mana and resources ad nauseum, cast a bunch of things, and then just like silence them halfway through their combo, and hopefully disrupt them. Or against like Oopsal spells, they flip their deck, and you they activate their Undercity Informant, and you silence them, and now they have an empty deck and can't cast their Dread Return, right? So has a lot of anti-combo effects to it, as well as protecting us against cantrips. So I like silence a lot right now, and that's kind of the main reason why I'm splashing white is for silence and serenity. Um, so yeah, those are your main spells. If you're playing green, on the other hand, this would be, 2 abrupt decays, 3 like, Veil of Summers, right? So there's kind of like your equivalent slots right there. Chain of Vapor is just a card that, I mean, it's the perennial. We love Chain of Vapor. It's 1 mana, answers any non-land permanent. Yeah, they could sacrifice a land to bounce something of yours, but I mean, that's okay. They bounce a Lotus Petal. Hooray. They might bounce your Grizzlebrand if you did like the hard reanimate and you're trying to bounce something, which, you know, be aware of that, but not the end of the world. You can even do the storm combo, bounce all your Lotus Petals, or recast them to gain storm if you're playing tendrils. So Chain of Vapor is it's a very efficient answer to most of the things that we're looking at against. So generally, you play your deck, you kill them game 1. What things do you typically expect? Leyline of the Void, Grafdigger's Cage, Tormod's Crypt, Relic of Progenitus, Thalia. All of these spells that are permanents that you can answer for 1 mana. Bounce it, EOT, bounce it up, go off. Absolutely love Chain of Vapor. Um, the one big thing is Chain of Vapor, of course, doesn't hit Chalice at 1. So I think, especially if you're not running white, if you're running a more green list, like Echoing Truth, Hercule's Recall, run those alongside Chain of Vapor. But I feel like Chain of Vapor, it's 2 slots. If you kill your opponent turn 1 and you have no idea what they're on, you can cut your 2 preordains here, bring in 2 Chain of Vapors, and be in great shape, on the off chance that they're trying to get you with permanence. Because odds are, if they're trying to get you with Graveyard Hate, it's either Surgical Extraction or a permanent. So Chain of Vapor, always just a good sideboard card to have. I almost always start my sideboards with 2 Chain of Vapor. Going a bit further along, I'm going to skip over to Fairy and Swords for right now. I'm going to talk about Surgical Extraction. So Surgical Extraction, once again, graveyard decks are pretty popular. Combo decks are pretty popular. Um, this can give you information. Maybe you discard your opponent, see, okay, they have like multiple force of wills in hand. You discard one force of will, surgical extract the second one. I mean, if they let that happen, so you can slow down your blue opponents. I really like it against like miracles because you can snag a cantrip early game and just really slow down the velocity of their deck. Um, so it has a lot of use in blue matchups. Obviously, great against the mirror match, Reanimator, Dredge, Oops All Spells, because you can hit their whatever important card they're trying to cast. Great against combo because you can you know Thoughtseize, hit Infernal Tutor, Surgical Extract it, and really slow them down. So Surgical Extraction, I always feel pretty good having two of in the deck. So I'm liking. I always if I'm starting my Tinfins sideboards, usually these four cards are my starting point. If I'm playing white, okay, I'll add these in. Pithing Needle. Pithing Needle is one that I didn't have in the deck until recently. Big reason is like if you're playing Pithing Needle, it's because you're specifically needing to hit an activated ability, and that's going to change based on the meta. And for the longest time, there were no real activated abilities that I was worried about hitting. But now that like Death and Taxes is really popular, like that Yorion Death and Taxes build that's going around, um, lots of Bant builds going around, 4-color decks. I've been seeing a lot of like 4 of Caracas in a lot of these decks. And so Caracas, really makes it hard for us to win, right? So Pithing Needle naming Caracas is, that's why this is there. You can also hit Sneak Attack against Show and Tell decks if you're playing against those. You can name, Wasteland, Ether Vial. Like you can name other things, but this is specifically for Caracas. Moving to kind of like my flex slots of the sideboard right now. I'm testing out these two cards. So Swords to Plowshares. I always like having like a generic removal option. I think Massacre is usually the way to go. Just because like Death and Tax, it answers Death and Taxes decks incredibly efficiently. So I'll opt for 2 Massacre first. But since I'm in white, um, I'm trying out just double Swords to Plowshares. It hits every single creature in the game, and that's great. Like, okay, yeah, it doesn't hit True Name Nemesis, but I'm not worried about True Name Nemesis. Um, and so it's just once again, it's an efficient 1-mana answer to any creature that's giving us issue. So it's been nice, but I think I might run more Massacre instead. Um, since Death and Taxes is looking to be a bit more popular. I haven't run into it yet in like the 2 leagues I've played. Um, and I have brought in swords a few times because I've run against the Ice Station Zebra pseudo mirror match, against Reanimator, against all these other decks. So, like, it has its uses. I like swords. If you're like sitting there looking at your 11 card sideboard and you don't know what to put in afterwards and you're in white, just run some number of Swords to Plowshares. Like, you'll find something to hit with it that's giving you trouble. And then lastly, Teferi. So this is a card where it first came out and we're like, oh, this is really cool and potentially really good. And then I started playing it and it was like a 3-mana duress. Like I play it, it eats a counterspell immediately. And it kind of kept happening. So I stopped playing it for a while and decided to just run more chant effects and other things. Um, but I'm trying it out again because not only are there just a lot of free counterspells going on that just uh, like free counter spells that are going on, surgical extractions, but now we have endurance in the mix as a flash spell that could eat our graveyard. And so this just shuts off our opponent from our turn. And that's just really, I like that. I like that quite a bit. And then this -3 hits an artifact, creature, or enchantment. And so there's like the Karn or the Urza Echoes deck where it's playing like forces and then also Chalice of the Void, and that is awful. So this, Teferi can like, if we somehow resolve this, you can resolve it over a Chalice of the Void, over a Trinisphere, cast it, bounce up the thing that is giving you issue, draw a card, and then not have to worry about forces on your turn while this is around. So I'm giving it a shot again because I feel like for a deck that doesn't want to sideboard a whole lot, Teferi answers a lot of things by itself. It can remove one permanent, it can defense grid us, and it's great. I think maybe just running straight up defense grid might be better in this slot. We're overlapping with like silence effects here. Um, and if we're worried about just shutting off our turn, a 2 mana artifact is a lot easier to resolve than a 3 mana need white and blue to resolve. So probably defense grid is the play here, but I'm just testing Teferi to make sure of it. So just keep that in mind while you're doing this. Uh, so these 4 slots are kind of my experimental slots at the moment. Um, and so yeah, so that's the sideboard. That's where I'm at with this as of now. I'll probably make more changes to this and post them on the Discord as needed. Um, and yeah, a couple other things I'll mention. So the Entombs Day special. So this has been a popular version of Tinfins because game 1 you Grizzle Random, game 2 you Doomsday them. That's really cool. And so there's a primer walked on the Discord, is posted a lot. He's on like the Doomsday Discord as well, and has been crushing events. So that's super neat. It's a fun list to play, but I feel like I'm not. My brain breaks playing Doomsday. I used to play Doomsday a lot back in the day, but now I'm old and slow, and I just sit in the tank forever trying to figure out what 5 cards to win with this deck. So this requires a lot of practice to pull off. But if you're doing it, deck is incredibly powerful. I mean, Force of Will and Daze are fantastic protection spells at the moment. Doom. I mean, this completely skips side graveyard hate. Although endurance does actually wreck this as well because it makes you like shuffle things or not, or I guess it doesn't shuffle things, but it can hurt your Thassa's Oracle. So yeah, maybe it's less good than it was, but this is a very powerful sideboard option if you're trying to play around graveyard hate and you don't want to try to fight through with a reactive plan. And then lastly, so don't mind, this is bizarre, so I mean different deck, same principle, but as far as green cards go, I really like Carpet of Flowers as a green card to put in the sideboard alongside Veil of Summer and Abrupt Decay. There's so much blue decks. There's a lot of islands. This can just let you power through Dazes and Spell Pierces really easily. So I love having at least one Carpet of Flowers if I'm running green. So shout out to that card alongside Abrupt Decay and Veil of Summer if you are a someone wanting to play with green cards. And then the last, for creature plane stuff, I feel like your best options are either, Sedgemoor Witch. If you're in green, Sedgemoor Witch plus Witherbloom Apprentice plus like 2 Chain of Smogs is a really tight, efficient plan to sideboard in over this framework because you have all the discard spells that play great. If you're running Flusterstorm, that synergizes well with the Magecraft ability. If you have Tendrils in here, that's a synergy right there. And then you bring in Abrupt Decays, Chain of Vapors, all these spells that can clear the way for your creatures to attack through. So I think that's probably like the best creature plan is in green versions of the deck to run those cards. Monastery Mentor, I like it quite a bit. I don't know if I'd play Mentor plus Witch in the same deck because that's a lot of 3 mana spells that we're trying to resolve. But both of them are Army in a Can. Witch gets the nod because it's you can Dark Ritual it, which is huge. Turn 1 Dark Ritual Sedgemoor Witch is, if you're expecting graveyard stuff or storm cards, and then you get a Sedgemoor Witch on turn 1, and then you just cast cantrips and pest them out. Like, yeah, that's really good. So I think those are good. I don't like Rotting Regisaur. It's 3 mana. Yeah, it's a 7/6, but like your opponent, you'll discard something and then your opponent will like swords in it and it feels really bad, or double bolt it. And I don't know. Once again, you can ritual it. It's a big body, but it just gets chump blocked, so I'm not huge on it. Turok, I think, is a really interesting card. Turok Dead Canter from the new Modern Horizons, just because it's 2 mana or 4 mana. It synergizes with all the discard as pro white. So that's a fascinating creature option. We talked about Esper Sentinel in the sideboard the other day. Just it's a 1 mana 1/1 that can draw you like a few extra cards over the course of a turn. And if they have no removal, maybe that 1/1 can go the distance. I remain unconvinced, but worth mentioning if you're trying to find like a white creature to play uh, in the white sideboard plan. But I think overall, like if you're picking up the deck for the first time, run a sideboard like this. Learn how to fight against the hate people are going to bring in, and then maybe if you're experienced with Doomsday, branch out into doing this. Or just play a creature plan because it's fun to turn creature sideways sometimes. But yeah, so that's gonna be it for the deck tech. Man, I originally said this was going to be a 10-minute thing, and I have 50 whole minutes on here. So quite a long ramble, but I think it does a good explanation of kind of the core of the deck, your flex slot options, what you can do with the deck when you're constructing it, good sideboard cards, and so on. So I hope that this really comprehensive video is of value to anyone looking to pick up the deck, either because they're brand new to Legacy and want to learn how to play the most fun deck in the format, or because you haven't played the deck in a while and you want like the 2021 quarter 3 update. So with that, thank you for watching. And if you're on the Discord, feel free to ping me at any time, and I'll happily answer questions. And yeah, thank you very much